Hello rail fans, and welcome to French Fried Trains. This video will be a little different. We're just going to do a walkthrough of my entire freight train and showcasing all the different locomotives and freight cars I've built. Now this train has a crazy abnormal number of engines just because this is where I've been doing my tutorials. One day when my city build gets out this far, we'll move all these engines into a proper yard and put an appropriate number of engines on the train. So first up, as you can see here, we have a Genesee in Wyoming GP15-1. Behind that, we have a Canadian National ET44AC 100th anniversary unit. Then, an early CSX-8 with a standard cab. Then this one's really unique, a Seaboard Coastline BQ23-7. And all of my locomotives have interiors. Not much of one because of the scale in Minecraft, but they do all have interiors and you can go in and out of them and walk up and down the walkways. Then behind that here, we have a little chassis system switcher locomotive. And behind that, a CP Rail SD40-2. Then, we have an EMD Tier 4 demonstrator locomotive. And then, an IBCX locomotive. Number 6321. Then behind that is a really special one, the Canadian Pacific World War II Veterans Unit. Next, we have a CSX U-boat, followed by a Southern High Hood GP30. Behind that is another rather unique one. It's a Sioux Line Baldwin center cab locomotive. To the rear of that is a Canadian National -8M. Then we have a BNSF High Hood GP9. Behind that is a CSX SD43 square cab. Then we have a DSSA RS1 switcher. Next up, we have an Illinois Central GP40R. Then IBCX number 818 and SDM. Then we have a Milwaukee Road S12 switcher locomotive. Behind that is a Sioux Line GP30. Then behind the GP30 is another old one, a CP Rail RS3 switcher locomotive. Behind that we have the Grand Trunk Heritage unit. And then a Grand Trunk SD42. Then we have some BC Rail locomotives. So here's a -9W. Behind that is a -9WL. And then behind that locomotive, we have a BC Rail -8M. Up next is a Santa Fe GP38. And behind that, a Norfolk Southern SD33 Eco locomotive. And a Canadian National GP9. And now we're getting back to some of my older builds that aren't quite as accurate. Behind that, we have a GP40 Mother with a GP30 Road Slug. And this GP30 is not as good as the other ones. It was a very early attempt. Behind that, we have a chassis system SD50. And then a Conrail GP38. Then behind that, we have a CSX YN2 SD40-2. And then an early CSX Blue and Gray SD42. Behind that, another SD40 in an early CSX paint scheme. And behind that, a Sioux Line locomotive. Behind that, one of my early attempts at a GT SD40-2 and a CP Rail SD40-2. And now we're into the rolling stock. So we have a white boxcar, and then we have a couple of empty center beam cars here. Behind that, we have a green tank car, and then a CSX coil shield car is behind that. Behind the coil shield car here, we have a small assortment of auto racks. This one's just supposed to be your plain Jane CSX auto rack. Then we have a Grand Trunk auto rack here, and then a CP Rail auto rack. And I was experimenting with different blocks on the sides to give them different looks. Behind that, we have a Railbox box car, and then a Rock Island box car in the Bankruptcy Blues paint scheme. Behind that, we have a chassis system covered hopper, and then behind that here, we have a loaded gondola car. Then we have a couple more coil shield cars here, and behind that, we have some different Procore tank cars. We have a couple of the same ones here, then a slightly different one here. Then we have a different style of tank car and an assortment of different colors here coming back. So we have a green stripe, a red stripe, black stripe, then another big Procore one. Behind that, a Burlington Northern covered hopper. Then we have a yellow Conrail boxcar, and then an assortment of different coil shield cars here. And as you can see, we're finally getting to where my city is, and you can see the reason why my train tracks are floating in the sky. Then we have some hoppers here, and here is where the real part of the city begins. In here you can see this is where my main train crossing is with the signals and gates. And then the train's going off at an angle here. I definitely would avoid this if I could. I don't like how the train looks being slanted like that, but it couldn't be helped. I'm building a specific area in real life, so the tracks had to be at an angle here. But if you can help it, keep your train straight. So here we just have a 5-pack of loaded double stack intermodal cars. And then we have some tank cars here, and you can see how weird looking it looks up close with them going off at an angle. From far away it looks okay, like the train's curving, but up close it looks really weird. Then we have another Rock Island boxcar here, and an Illinois Central boxcar. And behind that, we have a bunch of assorted, loaded gondolas here. After the gondolas here, we have some more auto racks. So here's a Union Pacific auto rack. This one here is supposed to be a Conrail one. And then another GT one back here. And here from far away you can see how nice it looks with the train curving back there. But when we get up close, like I said, it looks weird. Then behind the auto racks we have a loaded center beam car, an older Railbox boxcar, a chassis system boxcar here, then a Conrail boxcar, then we have this little train bridge, and an assortment of covered hoppers. We have some generic white ones, and there's a splash of color with a chassis system one. Then we have some 4-bay ones here. Some more white ones. This sand colored one is supposed to be a CSX one. And we have a black covered hopper. And then some other different colored ones. Then we got to come under this highway overpass here. We got another chassis system one there. Then another tank car here. Then another Railbox boxcar. Then another CP Rail auto rack here. And now we're at the edge of my build. We have a Procore cylindrical covered hopper. And then a classic Sioux Line boxcar. Behind that, we have an empty gondola, and then an empty center beam car. Then we have a Grand Trunk auto rack here, and finally a CP Rail cylindrical covered hopper. And this is where I'm at the end of the train as of right now. So as you can see, the train's fairly long. As of right now, I think it's pushing about 3,000 blocks long. So thanks for watching this showcase video. I hope you enjoyed it. That's all for this episode, and stay tuned for more. Everyone have a great week, and stay safe out there.